Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is Thursday, February the 13th, 2020, the day before Valentine's Day. That doesn't really mean anything. It's the day before Valentine's Day, doesn't mean anything. Today I wanted to talk about something a bit different. Well, not really different, still in the world of movies, but I want to talk about the legends of Hollywood. The current legends of Hollywood, and how we better cherish them now, folks, because, I mean, as morbid as this might sound, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here, but they're getting up there. They're getting older, folks. And is it right? Is it a good thing to bring them back to life in a virtual CGI sense in the world of major motion pictures? That is sort of the topic that I want to talk about today, because we live in a world where de-aging is not only becoming a thing, or the deep fake stuff is not only becoming a thing, it has become a thing. The technology is unbelievable. It is so unbelievable that it's scary. Now, I know, listen, I mean, maybe it's my age, not that I'm old, but I'm not, a teenager. I'm 40, I'll be 41 in May. So I'm not old, but I'm certainly old enough to remember a time where this didn't exist. And I'm old enough to sort of have the perspective of, I don't know if this is such a good idea. Now, I'm certainly not, here to say that I want to prevent technology from advancing, prevent the incredible technology that does exist and is currently being developed and built, not just in the world, of course, but in the world of major motion pictures in Hollywood. I mean, nobody wants to stand in the way of progress. At least we shouldn't, if it feels like it's the right thing to do. And sometimes, there's certain, progress can be a tricky thing, right? When the de-aging thing happened, when the de-aging thing was becoming a thing in the world of movies, I remember thinking to myself, I don't know if I am on board with this. Well, I can tell you now, I'm on board with the de-aging. It took me a little bit because I had to think about this, because it was new technology. And it was like, it wasn't really the de-aging aspect that I had issues with. It was more of the, where could this go? What does this mean? Right? It's this now, but what is it 5, 6, 7, 10 years from now? And that was sort of my apprehension to everything. Well, the de-aging technology now that we've seen it, now that we're aware of it, now that we know what it can do, I'm okay with it. And the reason why I'm okay with it is because it's really just the modern version of things we've always done in movies. We've made people fatter, we've made people older through prosthetics and makeup. And this is just sort of the visual effects version of that. We are not making them older or fatter, we're making them younger. So I was okay with that. It took me a bit to get on board. My first, I don't know if this was the first, but from what I can remember, my first introduction into sort of de-aging was The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Benjamin Button? One of the two. Haven't seen the movie in a while. I really like that movie, actually. I really like that movie. And when Brad Pitt comes out because obviously he's, de-aging throughout history. And when he comes back towards the end of the movie there as that movie was 2008, I believe. And he walked out in front of Kate Blanchett like it was, 1992. Not an exceptional amount of time, but enough time had gone by that certainly they had to do a little work. And I remember thinking, from what I can remember, again, this is 2008, wow, that looked really good. That looks really good. I totally believe that. Well, now the de-aging technology is ridiculous. Look at what they did with Samuel L. Jackson, in the Marvel. Was it Captain Marvel or one of the Spider-Man movies or something? You're fucking ridiculous. I think it was Captain Marvel, actually. fucking ridiculous. I totally believe that Samuel L. Jackson from 1995's Die Hard with a Vengeance. Like, I totally believe that. You know what I mean? It's incredible. And I'm okay with it because it's still Samuel L. Jackson. It's still him. You watch The Irishman with Robert De Niro and Al Pacino and Joe Pesci. It's still them. It's literally still them. Instead of having makeup put on, they're having a virtual makeup, if you will, put on to de-age them. So I'm okay with that. I was like, okay, I'm okay with that in and of itself, because it's just a modern version of really what we've always done, just going backwards. And then the deep fake stuff started to really catch on, where they literally superimpose, somebody else's face on somebody else's body. And it's so well done and so flawless that it's so well done and so flawless. The scary thing here is that this technology is not just in the hands of major Hollywood production companies and studios and effects houses. No. This technology exists in people's basements on their PCs. Collider.com, is by far and away not a major Hollywood effects company or studio. And they can do it as seamlessly as anything I've ever seen. And I don't want to stand in the way of progress here, but that opens up a whole other can of worms as well. What does that mean for security, national security, right? If you think about it, somebody could put me at the scene of a robbery and say, Dave, you're there. Yeah, but I wasn't there. I literally was not there. Yeah, but dude, I have you on camera. There you are, walking into the bank. There you are, robbing the bank. There you are, looking at the camera, flipping the bird, and leaving. That's you, is it not? Yeah, that's me. You're wearing the same hat. That's you. Look at that face. It's literally you. Scary, right? If you can, compartmentalize these things and maybe have them exist in a vacuum for the good of entertainment, then it's not really a big deal, is it? But that's not the way the world works. So, and this technology has existed for quite some time. It's just now becoming sort of mainstream. It's kind of a scary place. And in the fall, when I found out that there were these filmmakers that wanted to bring James Dean back, not just bring him back for some sort of one-off shtick thing for some award show or something. No. They want to resurrect not just him, but his career, which has been dead since the 50s. Literally, him and his career. I understand the coolness aspect of it when it comes to the technology. Look, technology is cool, man. Whether it's right or wrong, technology is very rarely boring. Technology is always cool. Sometimes certain things are cooler than others, but technology is always cool. And so I understand the allure and the mystique and the coolness of it, especially for those younger bucks coming up, younger kids. Holy shit. I get it. I totally get it. And I'm okay with de-aging, but resurrecting somebody's career who's been dead, it doesn't matter how long they've been dead. They could be dead a week. They could be dead 40 years. It doesn't feel right to me. It feels synthetically created because it is. It's not just like it was like it is the actor. It feels chintzy. No matter how good it looks, I guess I'm going to be the party pooper here and say, based on principle and artistic integrity, I just don't think it's a good idea. The person is dead. And lives have ends. people's lives end, people's careers end. I know it's not something we want. Listen, we would probably all love to, maybe not live forever, but I'm sure most of us would like to live beyond 75, 80, right? I mean, if we could live to 150, I think most of us would take that ticket. Of course, it would be nice if everybody we loved and shared our lives with could live that long too, because it would be a very sort of lonely world once you reach 75 and everybody around you is dying, or 80 and you get to live to 150. I mean, that could be a very lonely existence. But just like a good story, lives have ends. People end, lives end, careers end, and it's one of the main reasons why and how we receive value in anybody's life, in anybody's career. If there's no end to anything, then there's no need to pay attention. There's no need to rush out. There's no need to appreciate. There's no need to love. There's no need to, I can't say there's no need, obviously. That might be a bit of hyperbole. But certainly the need that we feel today to love and to appreciate, whether it's friends and family, spouses, careers, admiration for somebody's career, is because we know it's ultimately going to end one day. I mean, you might not be thinking about this consciously, but that's part of it. And if, John Candy can die in 1994, but still have a career forever, it doesn't feel right to me. Because it's not that individual. No matter how good it looks, no matter how much they sound like that person, it's not that person. Literally not. That person is dead, gone, either ashes or a pile of bones. They're never coming back. Ever. Ever. It's not going to happen. And I think there's something to be said about the careers of older actors living in the era that they shined in. I know that part of the excuse might be, well, it's a chance for a new generation to appreciate these new actors, or these older actors. Well, I mean, that's not really it. Let's be honest. That sounds nice, but I think you could you couldn't give a frog's fat ass about that. At the end of the day, it's about money and wow, look at this, and technology. I get it. But that is part of the era we're moving into that I don't agree with. Now, it doesn't matter what I think. They're either going to do it or they're not. But there's something, I mean, even with the deepfake stuff now, I mean, you can literally superimpose somebody's dead face on somebody else's body. And if they're a good enough impressionist, or if they have the cadence down, I mean, you can be fooled. And as of right now, that stuff lives in the world of, well, it's titled deepfake, and it lives in the world of just fun, sort of, shticky kind of skits. Taking clips and having fun, or getting, impressionists to be certain people, and it can be fun. It can be funny, right? It can be funny. And if it lived in that world, that's okay. But it's not just going to live in that world. You know that somebody's going to go, if it hasn't happened already. And there's just something about it that I don't, I'm as you guys know, I'm a stickler for artistic integrity. I'm a stickler for things that feel organic and not chintzy and not cheating. And I think that to do that, I mean, it's not that it wouldn't be cool. It's not that it wouldn't be convincing. It's not that it wouldn't be really, really kind of fun to watch, but it's the principle of it. And what's the long game mean? If nobody can die, if everybody can come back, it just, the cesspool of it just would be too saturated with, yeah, but Dave, wouldn't it be cool to see Harrison Ford with Humphrey Bogart? Well, sure, it'd be cool to see Humphrey Bogart with Jesus Christ. I mean, sure, of course, if you think about it. But I mean, there's a movie right there for you. But that doesn't mean we should do it. I mean, it goes back to the old, Jurassic Park line. Just because we can doesn't mean we should. Because it's not the immediacy of the presentation in that moment of whatever that is. It's the long-term residual effects of what it could mean, not just for the entertainment industry, but for everybody. I mean, if me, okay, here in my home studio, now I have a professional home studio, okay? It's probably, because of what I do for a living, it's probably a bit higher end than the average person in terms of the technology, the, equipment and yada, yada, yada. But if I here at home in Toronto, in my basement, in my home studio, can pick somebody out of the chat room here, go to their Facebook page, find what they look like, composite their face on a bank robber here in Toronto, that's scary shit. Now you might be going, oh, hey, that literally looks like Jim Carrey's in The Shining. You've all seen that deep fake. It literally looks like Jim Carrey's in The Shining. It's very well done. And if it's that good now, it's not going to get worse. It's only going to get better. It's the long-term effects of what it all means in the bigger picture that kind of bothers me. Now, again, I don't want to stunt progress. I don't want to be that party pooper. I get that these things are fun and you can use it for good as well. You can use this technology for good. It's like the Force, right? The Force is sort of neutral. You can use the Force for good. You can use it for bad. The Force is not necessarily good or bad. It's sort of the intentions behind it, right? But it's like that with anything in life. The internet, you can use it for good, you can use it for bad, but you know damn well that it's going to be used for bad. I mean, So to bring back like Marilyn Monroe and James Dean and Humphrey Bogart and Clark Gable or even not that far back not that far back. I mean, there are legends today. I hate to say it again. I hate to be this party pooper. I've said this here on this channel, but there are legends today that will probably not be with us over the next 10, 15 years. I mean, think of these people: Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Harrison Ford, Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, Martin Scorsese, okay, Michael Douglas, right, John Williams, Clint Eastwood, all right. Those 9 people that I just reamed off the top are all over the age of 75 or 70 at the very least. And some, like Clint Eastwood, are well into their 90s. Betty White, 98, Angela Lansbury, 95 or 4. Kirk Douglas just died last week at 103. Real modern day legends, even not the golden age of Hollywood, but modern day bona fide legends. We're probably going to lose quite a few over the next 10 years. The probability that each one of the people that I named will be around 10 years from now is highly unlikely. At least probably 2 or 3 are probably going to be gone, maybe more. It sucks, doesn't it? But I don't know how I feel about seeing Sylvester Stallone's career live on. I'm 95 and he still looks like he's 40. It just, I don't, there's something, it doesn't feel right to me. It's okay for careers to end. That's why we appreciate them now, or why we should appreciate them now. And again, you can take that for anything in life, not just the legends of Hollywood, but anything. But we're talking about the careers of legends in Hollywood, actors. For an actor to die and then to bring them back as if they did not die doesn't feel right to me, because it's not that person. No matter how good it looks, no matter how good they sound, it's literally not that person. It's not them. They're lying to you. It's not them. And there's this, it doesn't feel right to me. Perfect for a little skit or something for, an award show or YouTube. Fine. It's fun. But once you start going down that path, it doesn't feel right. The article, of course, that I was referring to comes from, this is from Global News here in Toronto. But you guys, I mean, this is all over the world, right? The headline is, "These men want to bring James Dean back to life literally and virtually." You know, and the article reads here, "The men bringing James Dean back to life for a forthcoming film are aiming not to just give his digital likeness a role, but a whole new career. It was announced in November that a virtual likeness of Dean would be cast in the Vietnam War movie Finding Jack. Now, there is a possibility for future parts for the virtual Dean, as his family plans to cash in further on the digital version of the actor." I mean, that's another thing that you have to remember as well, is that obviously nobody can do anything unless they get the rights from the family and the estate of whoever it is that they want to, you know, whether it's Marilyn Monroe, whether it's James Dean, Elvis Presley, whatever. Obviously, it's not just they can just do it. They have to get rights to do it. And who's to say that all these families will say yes? But the Dean family said yes because they want to cash in on the money, right? They don't care. And the thing is, too, is that something we have to remember as well is that the older we get, when I say we, I mean humans, society. The older we get, the further and further away we get from that era, from that life. The less, and especially in today's society, with technology expanding exponentially, with just the climate we're in, just the way society is now, you know? The further we go forward, the less and less people are going to give a shit about what's come before. I'm not saying that's right, and I'm not saying everybody's going to think that way, but you can see it, right? And that includes the family and the estates of these people. Like, we're still not that far removed, right? I mean, Dean died in the 50s, you know, but his family, like, it's not that long ago. It's a long time ago, but in the big picture, it's not that long ago, right? John Candy died in 1994. Not that long ago, right? But fast forward another 100 years, 150 years. I mean, people, they don't care. You could have the great-great-great-great-great-grandson of John Candy, who probably is like, yeah, because he has no emotional attachment to his grandfather. I mean, my grandfather was in those, yeah, I mean, my grandfather, John Candy, was in those, those little talkie, picture things from a box and a screen 200 years ago. Yeah, I mean, society is so far advanced and so far removed from what it was in the 20th century, that it's like, they don't, I mean, he's like, I can see a lot more of that selling out. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Anyway, digital de-aging and duplication of real actors has tipped from cinematic trick into common practice, exactly what I was talking about. It's giving new life to old arguments about the immortality and dignity of the dead. Quote, "Our intentions are to create the virtual being of James Dean," okay? "That's not only for one movie, but going to be used for many movies and also gaming and virtual reality," said Travis Cloyd, CEO of Worldwide XR, who is leading the design on the Dean project. Cloyd also said that the focus is building the ultimate James Dean so he can live across any medium. Worldwide XR legally has every right to create the virtual being of Dean because the Dean estate and his surviving relatives are in full agreement with the company. So there's nothing we can do, right? I mean, at the end of the day, this really is in the hands of, the estates and the families of said actors who are dead, whether it's Marilyn Monroe, Elvis Presley, John Candy, Robin Williams, whatever it is, and moving forward and so on and so forth. So, it happens. Quote, "Our clients want to protect these valuable intellectual property rights and the memories that they have of their loved ones," said Mark Rosler, I believe, CEO of CMG Worldwide, the legal and licensing company that has long owned the title to Dean's likeness. Quote, "We have trust in them. They want to see their loved one's image and memory continues to live on." Yes, they can live on in the shit they've done. It's like having old photographs of your family and your grandmother and your great-grandmother, and they live on through the time they were in. That's what you appreciate about them. That's what gives them their legend status. That's what gives them, you know, the mystique and the aura of who they were because of the time period. Not just because of this, obviously, but, you know, it's part of it. The time period they lived in, the era they lived in, right? You know what I mean? You can't just... it's just so frustrating. I mean, I get it. You have this technology. It's, ooh, what can we do? I get it, man. I get it. And some guy, you know, hey, let's bring back James Dean. Okay, all right. I get it. But it just, there's something about it that, you know, I've explained it. It feels... Anyway, let me finish this article here. Then I'll wrap up what I'm saying. Dean died at the age of 24 in 1955. He had made just 3 films: East of Eden, Rebel Without a Cause, and Giant. Cloyd and Rosler have not obtained the rights from Warner Brothers to use footage from those 3 films, but they have a large trove of photos and Dean's dozens of TV roles. There are thousands of images that we do have to work with, Cloyd said. What we typically do is we take all those images and videos and we run them through the machine, learning to create that asset. There will be a stand-in actor using motion capture technology, as is commonly done with CGI characters, along with the overdubbed voice of another actor to create the virtual Dean. Dean will be playing a supporting role in Finding Jack, which is now in pre-production. The limited screen time is, at this point, as far as those recreating him want to go. But they hope the digital avatar can eventually carry a movie, possibly even playing Dean himself at different ages. At some point, there's going to be the James Dean biopic, Cloyd said. I think the technology is not necessarily there today to take that risk. The announcement of this role was made last year. The announcement of the role last year was met with a lot of backlash. Actor Chris Evans even said, "I'm sure he'd be thrilled. This is awful. Maybe we can get a computer to paint us a new Picasso or write a couple new John Lennon tunes. The complete lack of understanding here is shameful." Elijah Wood, the former Lord of the Rings star, simply wrote, "Nope, this shouldn't be a thing." And, you know, you know what? I agree. Now, they might have more of an emotional attachment because they are actors and they're thinking about what that could mean for them, you know, when they die. And that I understand. That I do understand. I mean, I can, you know, I mean, I think about it sort of in my sense as a professional voice actor. I think about, you know, because we know that mimicking the voice technology does exist today. We know that. And yeah, there's a part of me that thinks, imagine if yeah, but Dave, wouldn't it be great if your voice of, well, no, not necessarily, because I'm not around to say whether I like that or not. I'm not around, you know, whether to, you know, I can say I approve of that or not. It's my voice you're using. That's me, man. No, I don't, you know, nah, it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. And let's be honest, this is nothing more than for money at the end of the day. I'm not saying that there isn't a base level there. Oh, wait. I think we're back. Are we back? We are back. We're back. We're back. Sorry about that, folks. I'm not sure what happened there. They're trying to cut me off. Something happened there. They cut me off. There's a little bit of a hiccup there, and they cut me off. Sometimes that's right. Darren says Dave's CGI now. Yes, I am totally CGI. I am not real. Look at this technology. Isn't this amazing? Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. Who knows? It is snowing here today, so maybe the weather's causing a bit of an issue. You never know. So as I was saying, you're back, Dave, you're back. As I was saying, I love you guys. You guys are awesome. So it's just one of those things where, like, I mean, it's a, you know, I don't want to seem like those, you know, one of those guys that you know, is a, although I am kind of becoming that guy with certain things, the old man, you know, get off my lawn thing. But certainly I don't want to stand in the way of progress in technology, but I just don't think resurrecting people's careers in a literal sense. I mean, again, doing some fun stuff for YouTube or fun stuff for an award show. I mean, that's one thing, right? I mean, because it's not really, it's a gimmick. Right? It's a gimmick and it stays in the world of gimmicky things. But when you actually start to, you know, resurrect somebody's career and have them in, and again, I'm not saying we're there next week, but it's not that individual. It's somebody else with dots all over their face pretending to be James Dean. And like, I'm okay if you want to find somebody who looks like James Dean and do a biopic with him as James Dean. Well, that's fine, because, you know, that is the actor. I mean, that's who he was born looking like, James Dean. But the whole idea of resurrecting James Dean himself, and, you know, and it's just, it's a very strange dichotomy in many ways, because I certainly can, and again, I mean, I try to be as objective as I possibly can here on the show, right? I certainly do understand and can see what people are talking about when it's like, oh, but think about this. And I get it. But at the end of the day, it's the principle for me. I think that, you know, just like our own lives, you know, careers have an end. Actors' careers have an end. And sometimes they end prematurely. But that is one of the main reasons why that some of them are legends today. It's some of the reasons why we appreciate them today. And it is the reason why that we should appreciate our favorite actors and directors and whatever it is today, because things end, and it's okay for things to end. And it's okay for those men and women to live on forever in the era that they shined in the era and in the films that made them who they are. And there's a certain honor in that. There's a certain artistic integrity in that. Of course, look what I'm talking about here, you know, artistic integrity in Hollywood. I mean, it exists, but, you know, let's be honest. You know, it's just how I feel about it. I think it's important. Obviously, at the end of the day, there's nothing anybody can do if a studio or a production company, and it doesn't have to be the Hollywood. It doesn't have to be the Hollywood elites. It certainly could be an independent production company if they have the rights to use it. Now, they may not have the rights to use, like as the article was just saying, any movies or shows that are owned by Warner Brothers or Paramount or, you know, 20th Century Disney, whatever it is. They may not have the rights to use that stuff. But to use the likeness of the individual, well, that falls in the hands of the estate of the family. 99.9999999% of the time. So if the family is saying, okay, knock yourselves out because they want money, well, there's nothing that I can do if I'm gone, no matter what the hell I thought, you know, unless, of course, you know, again, there is, now here's something that may actually help, is that if this technology begins to rise before these actors die, there may be something in their will that says, you cannot use my likeness. I do not give permission to my family to use my likeness in future roles after I am dead. An actor who looks like me or who's made up like me can absolutely play me, but you cannot, you know, digitally do what these guys are doing. I do not give permission for it. And therefore, you see, years ago, James, well, first of all, he didn't think he was going to die that young. But years ago, whether you're in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, I mean, these actors didn't think this technology was going to exist. They did not picture a world where we'd have little computers in our pockets. Do you know what I mean? And surfing something called the internet, the World Wide Web, you know, and doing shit like this. I mean, they didn't envision a world like that. So if any of them had wills, that certainly wasn't in it. But nowadays, if this technology starts to, you know, move up the chain, you know, and begin to rise, I certainly can see actors going, wait a second here, I'm just going to put this in my will, and I do not give permission to my family to do this. I do not want this. These are my wishes, and they must be abided by. And then it becomes legally binding, you know, after you're dead, and the courts and, you know, the lawyers have to uphold that. Now, whether that might vary from state to state, that might vary from, you know, up here, province to province, country to country, who knows, you know, what is legally binding and what's not, and what loopholes lawyers can find and all that kind of jazz. But if I was an actor who was absolutely against this, that is something I would do at the very least, because it can't hurt. It can't hurt to say, hey, after I'm gone, I don't want this. Or you can also say, hey, after I'm gone, I want to live forever. Fucking right. Fucking right, man. You fucking do that up, man. I'm going to live fucking ever, man. I want my family to reap the benefits of me being dead. I mean, you might be able to do that too, right? But, and maybe I would think differently if I was younger. Maybe I would think differently if I was a teenager in my early 20s now, coming up, having grown up in the virtual internet digital world, which obviously I didn't, and not that I'm not saying I'm old, but, being almost 41, I'm certainly old enough to remember a time when this didn't exist. So maybe I would feel differently. Right. But as of right now, because, working in the industry and being an actor and a performer and it doesn't feel right. I think it's okay to let careers die and people die and let them live in the world that they were supposed to live in. And now, while they're alive, while the actor is actually alive, if you want to use de-aging technology, I'm okay with that because it's still the actor, right? They have little dots on their faces, and they're going through the shit because it's still the actor. You're still getting the tiny nuances and little idiosyncrasies of the character's performance, because it actually is them. And there's also something psychologically satisfying about that. Even though they might be older now and they're using de-aging technology, there's still something incredibly satisfying about still watching that person. And so while they're alive, I'm okay with de-aging technology. I'm okay with deep faking technology as long as it lives in the world of, like the deep faking stuff has to live in the world of shticky skit entertainment stuff. And maybe they'll combine the two. I mean, maybe they'll use the de-aging technology and the deep fake technology, and there'll be some sort of hybrid that really make the de-aging technology, look really great or, whatever. I'm okay with that because, like I said at the beginning of the show, it's just more of a modern version of what we've been doing for decades in film with characters by making them fatter or making them older through prosthetics and makeup. Well, now it's virtual makeup, but instead of making them older, we're making them younger. So I'm okay with that because it's still the same person. But after that person goes, and I don't want them to go either, but after they go, to bring them back to life with some stand-in and virtual technology, and it's not like it's being played off like it is him in the movie. Like, obviously, it's not him in the movie because you're wise enough and smart enough and old enough to know that that's actually not him. But the actual narrative in and of itself is playing it off like it's such and such starring James Dean, or whatever. And I just don't think it's something like it may see like these things are. Often these things can be insidious, and what seems Dave, it's okay, it's just this. Well, yeah, it might be just this right now, right? But before you know it, just this turns into this, and then it's what it means long term. It's what it means long term, and that's something that I'm just not. I'm really skeptical on. I'm not for that. I'm okay. Like I said, I'm okay with it. Living in a fun world. But when I hear that I'm going to see a movie in 30 years, starring Jack Nicholson, Robert De Niro, and Al Pacino, but wouldn't it be cool? Well, yeah, it would be cool. And the technology might be cool. And it might be very convincing, but it's not them. It's not them. And I'm just not... I just would rather, I guess you could use the argument and say, yeah, but what about it's I'm okay. Here's where I'm okay with this. If you were to make, like they were saying in the the article, which they even said that it's not fully there yet. But if you were to make a biopic on Marilyn Monroe or James Dean, and you're using a stand-in and digital technology to make them look like, that's one thing. That's one thing, because it's a biopic. The person's dead. It would be very similar to somebody, like, Josh Brolin making himself to look like George W. Bush for W. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, but they're using the digital technology to make you look like. Okay, well, that's okay, because it's a biopic and you would hire an actor to do that anyway, but now you're doing it digitally. But to resurrect the actor's career, so now you have like this one guy who's just going around being James Dean in movies, that I have an issue with. So all of a sudden, somebody, some big fat guy comes along and just somebody said, you know what, let's have John Candy back. Let's just do a bunch of John Candy movies. So now you have a movie starring John Candy again. And it's a fat guy who looks like John Candy because of the technology. And he's in there. And it's not a biopic. It's some movie starring John Candy. It's like, dude, that's the shit that doesn't sit right with me. It's that stuff. Like, I can understand biopics getting to a point where, well, instead of us using prosthetics, why don't we use the digital technology? Okay. All right. I can see the argument for that. I can understand that, because again, you're just using the digital version of what you would use to hire an actor. But if we're talking about resurrecting legends' careers, no, Marilyn Monroe is just going to be back. I mean, obviously it's not going to be really Marilyn Monroe, but this actor will just be the Marilyn Monroe now. You know what I mean? And they come on and you can go to a movie and you can watch a movie starring Marilyn Monroe and James Cagney, and there they are. It's not a biopic. It's just regular. It's just what they're doing now. Yeah. It's like, and then now, the Oscars has best virtual actor, best virtual actress. I mean, it's just like, just doesn't let them go. Let them go. Biopic. Okay. All right. We might be able to work something there. Chintzy, shticky, skit, kind of funny, hilarious things, award shows, YouTube. Okay. Sure. It's fun. Literally resurrecting somebody's career like that? Nah, I'm just not for it, man. And I think you would be hard-pressed to find any respectable actor that would be. I think you would. I mean, there's always going to be somebody, yeah, man, do it. I don't fucking care. Whatever. I mean, you're always going to, I'm not. What do you mean? You mean that everybody thinks like that, smokes pot? No, I'm just, it's a joke. Relax. But, it's one of those things. It's like, I think you would be hard-pressed to find a lot of people that would agree with that because of how personal and how serious many of these actors take their careers, and how they wouldn't have the creative control once they're gone. They're like, I don't, it's my legacy here. It's my legacy that needs to remain intact. And that's another thing too, that if you start presenting James Dean, Marilyn Monroe, Humphrey Bogart, Harrison Ford when Harrison Ford dies, or Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, whatever it is, then you almost as well you may ruin the legacy of these actors. There's the potential to ruin the legacy. Look, they can sometimes ruin their own legacy, but I'm saying that, I mean, look at Bill Cosby, but I'm just saying that there's that potential there, because you are synthetically creating a version of them that does not exist. And the further we go on in life, the only thing that will be remembered is the virtual version of them. I should have mentioned this earlier. The virtual version of them, and not the real version of them. Because as technology continues to exponentially expand, and as society continues to grow, and as the baby boomers continue to, make their way out, I hate to say it, make their way out of the world, and then the Gen Xers like me, we eventually become the new baby boomers, and then we start to make our way out, and then whatever's that, the millennials, they come, and then they start to make their way out, and then the Y, is it? I think it's, and then they start to, like in another 250 years, looking back, people might look at James Dean, he might still be going. He might still be going in 250 years. I mean, who the hell knows, right? But people could look back and be like, that was a real guy? Oh, I didn't even know that was a real guy at one point. Oh, that was a real guy? Oh, I thought this was just some made-up cartoon character. Oh, you mean all these people were real people at one point? Oh, I didn't know that. Sounds funny and ludicrous right now, right? Sounds ridiculous. Now, come on. Hey, how much do you know about 1658? How much do you know about 1782? How much do you know about 1825? I'm going to the extreme to make a point, but I think you see my point, right? I mean, how much of 1950 do you or I even know? And we're not that far removed from. I mean, I know a little bit, of course, because obviously I had parents that grew up through that era. But at the end of the day, I think you see my point. How much of the 1990s and 2000s and 2010s are people 150 years from now going to know? Especially because of technology and how it's expanding at such a rapid rate. You don't have to care about shit that happened 150 years ago. Why would you? And it's not like we can count on it to be taught. So I'm just saying that that's another angle too, is that the legacy of these characters could be in jeopardy. No, Dave, Dave, come on. It's fine. That's fine. You can think that. But I've said it. And maybe somewhere along the line, 150 years from now, somebody will dig up this video out of the sand. What is this? I don't know. Let's watch it. How do we watch it? I don't know. It's something called a smartphone. Who knows, right? They use something called the internet. They watch it. Whoa, this is so weird. We have to actually watch it. That's so weird when I can just type it into my brain right now. But anyway, let's use our eyes. Whoa, man, this is so fucking weird, dude. Maybe they'll find this and be like, whoa, that dude was right. Holy shit, man. They knew it then. And I become this amazing, like, Nostradamus type character. McRae. It's just one of those things that I'm a stickler on because, I'm an actor, right? And I want those. I just think the insidious nature of the potential of what it could become, the principle of it just is not right to me. And, and I'm thinking about this a lot, not just because of what they're doing with James Dean, of course, but because, as I've mentioned many times on this channel before, we are in an era now where, like I said, we are going to be losing a lot of legends over the next number of years. And, I know that sounds morbid and, we don't necessarily want to talk about that, but it's true. The people we grew up with, they've always been there in our lives. So it's hard for us to imagine a life without them. And, but the fact of the matter is these legends we've grown up with, whether it's like I said, your Stallones or your Schwarzeneggers or your Eastwoods or your Harrison Fords or your, Spielbergs, Scorsese's, Lucas's, whatever. I mean, they're up there now. I often joke that, and this is true, that Steven Spielberg's dad is actually, as far as I know, he's still alive today at 103. And Spielberg's mom, who sadly isn't alive, but she lived to 97. So Spielberg, I think, is like 74 or 5 or something like that. So if the genes fit, and that's genes with a G, if the genes fit, we could be getting Spielberg movies for the next 20 years. But who knows, right? I mean, just because his mom and dad have lived very long lives doesn't mean that Spielberg will. There's a good chance, of course, but it doesn't mean he will. So I just think, I wouldn't want. Yeah, like it just doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't feel right to me. And I understand the allure of it. I understand the technology. I understand the excitement surrounding it. I understand the cool factor. But it's more of the long-term game of what it means. It's more of the long-term sort of insidious nature of this technology that can just sprawl out beyond. And again, guys and gals like you can have this technology in your fucking basement. on your PC that's got 4 gigs of RAM. I mean, mind you, you probably need more than 4 gigs of RAM to do this technology, but you know what I'm saying. It's not mutually exclusive to the high caliber Hollywood visual effects houses anymore. I mean, people at home can do this. They can put you and me anywhere they want, in theory. And it's crazy, man. It's crazy. So I just think it's important that when we talk about these old school legends, and when we talk about the new legends that will inevitably be crossing over in the next number of years, I think it's important that we let them be, we honor them, we appreciate them today. It's going to suck. I mean, you've heard me say 1,000 times on this channel, my favorite actor of all time is Harrison Ford. When he goes, hopefully he's got another 10 years in him, but when he goes, because he'll be 78 in July, when he goes, that's going to be a tough one. I mean, that might be the next toughest death after my parents, to be honest with you. It's like, that's going to be tough, man. That's going to be tough, but we need to appreciate these people now. We need to watch their movies now, and I think it's important that once they do go, they continue to exist and only exist in the world that they lived in. Because that's how we truly appreciate their legacy and honor who they were and the impact they had on that culture at that time in that society. That, I think, is really important. That's how I feel about it. All right, let's move over to the chat room and see what you guys are saying about it. Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? Do you don't give a fuck about it because maybe you're young and hip and spry and you just don't give a shit? I don't know. But let's go to the chat room. There was a couple of super chats that came in at the very beginning. I will, let me see here. Oh, right, because we had a bit of a hiccup. We're not, let me just see here. We're not doing 2, are we? It was the same one, right? Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, it's the same one. We're live now. Let me go back and see where. Hang on, I gotta access those super chats. 1 second here, guys. My apologies, because there was a hiccup in the stream, if you remember. So let me just go and see if I can access those or a super chat. I think there was 1 or 2 super chats that came in. This will just take a second, and because I don't want to miss them. And they are, it was 1. It was Big G, and Big G says, yes, we definitely should. Better stars back then. I disagree. And you can watch the entire video to find out why I disagree. Oh, wait a minute. We're okay here? Oh, yeah, we're okay. We're still on. We're still on. We're still on. That's good. That's good. It might be finicky today, folks, because of the weather. The weather's a bit crazy here, though it shouldn't be having an effect. I mean, it's not like I live in a rural area. Brandon Barry says, Dave, better immortal, Connor or Duncan? Better immortal, Connor or Duncan McLeod? I don't know who Connor or Duncan McLeod. Maybe I know their faces. Maybe I know who they are, but I'm not familiar with the names right off the top of my head. Who are they? Brandon, just at me and just tell me who they are, and then maybe I'll be able to give you a better idea. Not too sure. Let me see here. Swifty the Gamer says, good luck to the Toronto Blue Jays this summer. Yes. 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 Sounded like Jeff Goldblum there. Yes. The Blue Jays. Yes, the Blue Jays. Baseball. Yes, baseball. I would say that yeah, I'm hoping the Jays do well, man. I'm hoping they do well. Oh, Highlander movies. Oh, the Highlander movies. I haven't seen the Highlander movies in a long time. So that's really hard for me. That's hard for me to answer, dude. Now, as soon as you said the Highlander, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. That's hard for me to answer. I'd have to watch the Highlander movies again. I'm sorry, but I don't, like, my answer is I genuinely don't know. Like, I'm not going to lie to you and say, oh, it's just great, when I actually don't know, right? That's how you know I'm actually, like, I have a lot of, like, I'm being truthful, is that it's okay to say I don't know. Brian Flanagan sends in a super chat, but the message was retracted, but nonetheless, he's supporting the channel. Thank you, Brian. Really appreciate the support nonetheless, buddy. Aaron Click says, Dave, if audiences vote at the box office, or not to vote, to be exact, by not flocking to these movies using the deep fake likeness of actors, will filmmakers listen, be that money? Well, I think, well, look, I mean, it's a business. They are supplying a product. So anytime that the product doesn't do well or fails, they will inevitably move away from that product. So that is how you send messages to Hollywood. Forums and YouTube videos. And I mean, that's one thing. That's great, and you can be loud and as obnoxious as you want, but at the end of the day, if the movies are still making boatloads of money at the box office, they don't care. They don't care because that's the bottom line. I mean, again, when I say they don't care, I don't mean that they intentionally go out to make a bad movie or they're making movies carelessly. And I don't mean that. I just mean from the corporate studio executive perspective, the bottom line, right? The motion picture industry, which is show business. That is the most important thing, is making money. They always hope you like the movie. They go out to try and make a good movie, but there's many, many times there's too many cooks in the kitchen. And shit hits the fan and things happen. But if the movie makes money, they'll probably make another one. Now, are there examples of movies that have made money that have had some turmoil behind the scenes that haven't gone on to make a sequel? Sure. Again, this is not set in stone. It's generally speaking. So if it were to get to a point where major motion pictures were using deep fake technology, again, not de-aging technology, because again, I think that's okay. And even the technology that we were talking about here on the show in terms of the idea of legends being resurrected through virtual means. You know, as I was going through it again, because I think it's important, I actually think that might be okay when we're talking about biopics, because you would hire an actor to play them anyway, and you would either make them up to look like them or hire a lookalike anyway. So that I'm okay with. It's resurrecting their careers beyond that, like you're going to see a movie starring John Candy. And I mean, again, you know it's not him, but it plays out as if it is him. That I have problems with. And if you're just tuning in, you can go back and watch the video and find out why. So if we ever do get to that point, then, which we're not quite there yet, but if we do, I mean, yeah, and you are still going to the movie theater and paying the box office that way, I mean, that would be one way to send a message. Absolutely. 100%, man. Let's see here. Jonathan Nichols says, thoughts on the new Honey, I Shrunk the Kids movie coming out? Yeah, I actually was going to talk about that today, but I decided not to because I didn't think I could fill I didn't even think I could fill a half hour. All I have to say is I'm not particularly excited about it. I'm a little disappointed but again, I'm sure he has his own reasons why. I'm a little disappointed that Rick Moranis, good Canadian guy, by the way, did not return, or supposedly, by all accounts, is not returning to the new Ghostbusters movie. And that's a bit disappointing when you have, Bill Murray and you have Dan Aykroyd and Ernie Hudson and Annie Potts and, and Sigourney Weaver, and to not have Rick Moranis return seems a little unfortunate. Now, unless they've pulled the greatest, secret of all time, and he is actually going to be in the movie, who knows? But by all accounts, he's not. He was not seen on set. He was not at the dinner with Weaver and Potts and Aykroyd and Hudson and Murray. He has his reasons why. But then to return to arguably, of course, what would be one of his other most iconic roles, I get it, but it feels, it just would have been great to have him return. I mean, maybe if Bill Murray wasn't, maybe if the original cast were not returning, well, yeah, I mean, if the original cast were not returning, there'd be no reason to have him come back. So it just wouldn't be a big deal, but it just feels like a loss. It feels like a loss. And Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, it looks like, is it Josh Gad, I think, is playing his son, if I'm not mistaken, and he's trying to figure out ways, he wants to be, it's a very cookie cutter, stereotypical 30 years later sequel, where obviously Rick Moranis is going to be playing himself, but older. Obviously, Josh Gad will be playing the kid. I think it's him that's playing the kid. He's older now, probably a guy, in and around my age or so, maybe a bit younger. No, about my age, right? Because the film came out in 1989. The kid looked like, about my age, 40, let's say. And he has his own family, and he ends up shrinking his kids. And it's like, but what else do you do? Like, at the end of the day, what else do you do? Like, I get it, but it's like, you know what I mean? We'll see, man. We'll see. We'll see. I love me some Rick Moranis, but we'll see. Let's see. The Artisan says, what do you think about a female cliffhanger that has been swirling for a while? Oh, a female cliffhanger. Well, I don't just make a movie. Again, don't make a movie. Just make an original film that maybe has to do with rock climbing or something like that. But it's not necessarily like you're not going through the same story beats or the same sort of, it's like, oh, this is and you're calling it cliffhanger. No, just make a movie about a spy or a I don't know. It's hard. Or just don't do that and make something original. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. A female cliffhanger. I don't know why. Why? No, I mean, just why? Listen. Just make it original. Allow listen. The best way you can get women to sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Like the best way you can do this. This women having the same types of roles is to allow them the opportunity to stand on their own. You don't want to start, like if you give women all the roles that men made popular, well, and let's hypothetically say that version, which is now a woman, right, does really well at the box office. Well, I mean, how do you know at the end of the day that it was the story and you will forever be living in the shadow of a man. You'll forever be living in the shadow of a role and a character that a man created, and which is totally counterintuitive and contradictory of what you're trying to do. Let them have you have the same opportunities, but you allow original stories and original characters that give them the opportunity to create iconic, awesome fucking shit characters that's all their own. It's not Indiana Jane or Jane Bond. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, man. Because you're just literally writing, and then it's the IP that really makes the movie do well. You know what I mean? That stuff I don't like. I don't like that stuff. I think it's important that there's an opportunity for them to thrive, because there's a lot of amazing female created characters that have thrived on their own. Sarah Connor, right? You know what I mean? It does exist. We need more of that. Super chat comes in from Brian Flanagan, says, you should make a highlight video of all the times you addressed Devontae Huntley. It's hilarious. Oh my God. Well, you know what? To be honest, Brian, I haven't addressed him all that often, to be honest with you. For those of you that have no idea who Brian is talking about, he's sort of the troll of many channels here. He likes to, he's just, he's a sad little person, unfortunately. But I haven't actually had to address him in the big picture. I haven't had to address him that often. So it would probably be a short video, but I know what you're saying. And I wouldn't even know where to look. I have no idea what videos or what anything where I've actually done that. You guys would probably know better than I would. Mr. No Name says, I don't mind either, but I hate that they are trying to shove it in our throats with changing roles and remakes and whatnot. I agree. It doesn't feel organic. It doesn't feel like it was earned. And I think there is nothing wrong with writing original characters that are female driven, and you give them the same opportunities, the same budgets and the same, production houses and but you allow the story and the character to stand on its own. Now, does that mean that an Indiana Jane or a Jane Bond could not stand on its own and be an amazing movie? Well, sure, of course, they're not mutually exclusive to each other. I mean, obviously, you could make, it's possible to make a Jane Bond that's amazing. But my question is, why would you want to do that? I mean, listen, I understand. From a business perspective, I understand. But the artist in me is like, why would I want to do that? Like, why would I, like, if I'm really wanting to, I would feel like I would want something that's all my own, that is able to stand on its own and flourish on its own. And that's what you really do, that's how you do it. Because that's awesome. That's cool. You know, it's like, yeah, fucking right, man. Fucking right. You knocked it out of the fucking park. Yeah, fucking right. High five. Fucking awesome. You know what I mean? That's what it's all about. You know, not Indiana Jane. Come on, man. You know, I mean, look at Lara Croft and Tomb Raider, right? I mean, I understand that the most recent film that came out a couple years ago didn't do that well. Apparently it was pretty good. The Angelina Jolie films from the early 2000s, you know, they are what they are. But that's the right idea. You know, it's not like they have, I mean, you could say, well, that's the female Indiana Jones. Well, yes, that would be, you know, if you were looking to what, you know, is the female version of that, you might look to Lara Croft, but she's not Indiana Laura. You know what I mean? She's literally not taking the mantle. I mean, she's not, you know what I mean? It's her own thing, that's great. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. You know, there's a lot of movies with male protagonists that also fail miserably at the box office. You know, there's a shitload of examples of movies that bomb at the box office, you know, with guys in the lead, you know. So what happens on this side too, you know. But I am all for cool, strong, you know, awesome female like characters. We all are. Most men are. Are there sexist, bigoted pieces of shit out there? Yes, of course that exists. It does. But I think generally speaking, most men are for this. Like, yeah, of course, man. Who doesn't want to watch that? It's awesome. But they also don't want to feel preached to and like it's on the nose and like it's synthetically created and it doesn't feel organic. It feels preachy. It feels lame. Right? It's got to feel legit. You know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with that, man. That's how I feel anyway. There's nothing wrong with that. Chassis Smith says, @Dave, what are your thoughts on Scream 5 being made? And how many times can Sydney escape Ghostface? And how many relatives or boyfriends does she have to play Ghostface? I think it's getting old. Chastity, you are correct. I am not thrilled for Scream 5 because I'm skeptical on what they're going to do. You've heard me say this 1,000 times on this channel. The shtick of Scream, I think, wore thin after the first movie in 1996. The first movie in 1996 was a really cool movie. It was built around a sort of gimmick and a shtick and sort of very... It wasn't a... You know, you've often heard me say that Scream is a spoof. It's not a spoof. I mean, that might be too far, but it's very spoofy. You know, I mean, after all, the janitor is dressed in a Freddy Krueger sweater. It's Wes Craven, and his name is Fred. Like, I mean, come on. You know, I mean, that's like, there are spoofy elements in the movie. It's very self-aware. It's making fun of itself while still maintaining this somewhat serious narrative that they're trying to, and it's really cool, right? It's really cool. We didn't see anything like that prior, and it's awesome. But after that first movie, once you know how the magic trick is done and once you know what it's all about, it can become stale relatively quickly. Now, I know that some people quite enjoyed part 2. Fine. Most people agree that 3 is like, you know, some people liked 4, but maybe that's because, you know, 11 years had gone by and a new generation was discovering this and some, you know, technology had evolved, so they were to utilize current technology. But I mean, you know, I still think the first one is the best heads above the rest. I think 4 was better than 3, but even 4 was like, again, you know, and now they're talking about a Scream 5. You can't do the same thing that you used to do because you've heard me say 1,000 times, nobody answers their phone anymore. Okay, nobody answers their phone. When I say nobody, again, it's generally. How many times do you see an unknown number pop up on your phone? Do you answer it? 9 times out of 10, you probably don't. And how often are you talking on the phone? Hardly at all, right? You're always, you know, that's why, you know, I say that these are pocket computers. They're not phones. They're pocket computers that can make phone calls. So the idea of the phone call and the picking up and the, hello, Sydney, you know, and all these things, I mean, that would, I would imagine, still be a part of it, but it would evolve, right? The technology, and I don't know what they're going to do. Is it going to feel too gimmicky? Is it going to feel too shticky? Or is it actually ironically going to work because so much time has gone by that it almost feels like it's a new reinvention of what Scream could be? But then naturally by doing that, you're going to piss everybody off. You know, so I don't know what they're going to do. Are they bringing back the original cast? I understand that is the plan. You know, they're going to bring back the original cast, but like you said, how many times does this happen? unless, like I said, unless they got something in their back pocket that says, we're going to evolve here, and now it's going to be about Snapchat, WhatsApp, and, FaceTime or something. I don't know. There's definitely ways you can evolve, but you have to evolve the technology because nobody's picking up their phone anymore. It's hard. It would be hard to believe that you can build a Scream movie now around all sorts of people going, hello, hello, hello. I mean, people just don't do it. They don't do it. It's one of the things that the recent Black Christmas from Blumhouse had problems with. You know what I mean? It is something that myself and Bruce have had to figure out when it comes to It's Me, Billy. We've had to sort of figure out because we know that people nobody's answering their phones anymore. So, and we were able to crack that code. It wasn't that difficult. But those are things that you're cognitive of. Those are things that you are aware of. Those are things that you are thinking about. And so now, I have no doubt that when they do Scream 5 or when they sit down to write it, they will probably be thinking about those things. But to answer your question, I agree with you. It's like, what else can we do here? I don't know. I just think the Scream thing, it wore thin for me after the first movie because it was so it was so reliant on the shtick and the gimmick of the overall blanket that was driving the narrative forward, that once that's revealed, it doesn't have the novelty's worn off. So it doesn't have the same sort of impact. That's how I feel anyway. That's how I feel. But we'll see, man. We'll see. Maybe they'll do something cool. I don't know. But I tend to agree with you. Frank Riker sends in a super chat. Thank you, Frank. Says, hey, Dave, I always think Halloween's theme is its own character, same as Exorcist. But why not Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th was kind of changes with each movie? Well, there is a... certainly with Halloween, the Halloween theme, which has been the one constant through all films, yes, it is its own character. It is arguably not just one of the greatest themes in movies, but one of the greatest or in horror, but one of the greatest themes in motion pictures. If you are not a horror fan, you probably know the Halloween theme. It's that good. And most of you probably already know this, but last fall when I was in Los Angeles for the Voice Arts Awards, I was having dinner with Mickey Yablans and his family, and he brought out the original recording of the Halloween theme, which is it blew me away. I still get giddy thinking about it today. He had the reel-to-reel. He did not have a proper device to play it on, but he had the reel, opened it up. I was smelling it. I was like, on there is the original recording of the Halloween theme. That is crazy. Mickey Yablans, of course, played Richie in the original film. And of course, his dad is, Irwin Yablans. So I've got to know them a fair bit not a fair bit, but, relatively well over the last couple of years, I'll say. Really nice family. Really, really nice family. And when he brought that out, it was just like, wow, you know what I mean? I still I say that just because it still blows my mind. I never thought I'd have a chance to. So it was really, really cool. But that being said, the theme is iconic, and it is a character in the film. The entire soundtrack for the original movie is a character in the film. And then, of course, as the sequels move on, they kind of tend to lean away from those one-off sort of, the shape stocks. And as they go on, you get it in part 2, but as they hit, it evolves and changes, and then it kind of disappears. But the one constant in some sort of variation is always the Halloween theme. And the Exorcist theme as well. I agree. Very cool. Nightmare on Elm Street, though, is, the or whatever, however it goes. It's, I don't know. The Friday the 13th, I think Elm Street 2 actually has one of the best soundtracks for horror, for its creepy fucking music. The or ch ch ch. a Friday the 13th is definitely iconic. It's definitely a character. I think that's a character in the movie. But the early Friday the 13th music, the bum 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 bum, I really like that. But after part 3 or 4, that's gone. So when you get to 5 and 6 and 7, that's gone. And it just feels like that generic sort of, horror music. So I agree with you there. Yeah, it's something I got to think about. I think it's more of it's just more of the idea that I think the Halloween theme was able to really, that's one thing that the Halloween theme was able to do, embed itself into the pop culture, more so than what Elm Street or Friday the 13th did in terms of in terms of its main theme or its main hook, right? Because it's not really a theme, but it's main hook. Although that is still iconic too. That's a good question, man. That's a good question. Hard to sort of talk about, or hard to answer with any sort of real certainty. But I like your thinking there. I got to think on that more. Let me see here. Go back, make sure I didn't miss any super chats. I don't think I did. No, I don't think I did. But you guys will let me know if I did. But I don't believe I did. Let's see here. Scrolling down, Chris Hurley says, highly recommend listening to the entire Tubular Bells. It's good. It's good. It really changes too. But it's cool. Yep, I agree. Let me see if I can get somebody I haven't got. Colin Aldman says, Dave, what was your favorite actor or actress that has passed away that has affected you? Well, like I was saying early in the show, when Harrison Ford passes, and hopefully that's not going to be for like another 10 years, but he's my favorite actor of all time. That's going to be tough. That's going to be hard. That might be as hard, not as hard, obviously, but that might be the next hard after my parents. Because my parents passed in 2011. So that's going to be really hard for me. But somebody who has passed, I don't think there's been anybody that's been hard, but shocking, because of their level of impact in pop culture, would be somebody like Michael Jackson or Robin Williams. That was surprised, like, whoa, okay, all right, okay. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, whoa, okay. So that's kind of like, but it's not like it was like, oh man, I feel really depressed today. Harrison Ford's going to be like that for me. And I think, and it's the level of impact that these people have had on the pop culture in the world of entertainment. So I think there will be some that will affect you more than others, but I think most of us can agree that when like a De Niro or a Pacino or a Stallone or a Schwarzenegger passes, even if it might not affect you emotionally, you're still going to have that moment where you're like, huh, okay, wow, they're gone. It's kind of like, wow, because of they're legend. I mean, we can't imagine a world without them, and their impact on our childhood and our teenagerhood and our adulthood. I mean, it's just been so huge, So that's two for me anyway. That kind of was like, wow, interesting. Frank Riker sends in another super chat. Thank you, buddy. Really appreciate it. Says, Dave, what movie or actor was your parents obsessed with, like we are with Halloween? Well, that's a good question. Wow. I don't know. I will say my mom loved the original Halloween. She loved it. She loved it so much that every Halloween we'd watch it together. She liked it a lot. My mom was pretty hip. She was hip. She was hip to the scene. She obviously there were some older films that she absolutely loved, but I can't think of any specifics. That's a very good question. I used to go to the movies all the time with my mom. And she loved seeing the modern shit. She loved Avatar, loved the experience, she loved, Titanic and the experience. My mom loved, she was very good at, she wouldn't like, a bad movie, if it was bad just because of the experience, but she loved good stories told well that have great experiences, the cinematic experience. And when Titanic came out in 1997, the end of 1997, of course, that's when movie theaters were beginning to sort of, I mean, they had already done this, but they were sort of, very early in its infancy of changing over from the old school cinemas that you and I would, go to in the 80s and early 90s to the Coliseum type, epic stadium seating type cinemas that you have now with the gigantic 60-foot screens and, all that kind of jazz. That started to really make its way into the probably about 96, 97, at least up here in Canada anyway. And so to watch a movie like Titanic that really commands the screen and presence and that level of scale on a screen like that, my mom just loved it. It was like, wow, and I get it totally 100%. So I think, I can't think of any specific older films, either of them. I can't really. My dad really wasn't a movie guy. He liked movies. I mean, he liked movies as much as the next person. He really loved Forrest Gump. My dad loved Forrest Gump. But I can totally understand why, because it's always calling back to the eras that my dad grew up in, right? My dad was born in 1942. So, he grew up as a teenager through the 50s and the 20s, or the 20s. He grew up being through his 20s in the 60s and through his 30s in the 70s and through his 40s in the 80s. And so, although Forrest Gump didn't quite go to the 80s, but certainly my dad remembers that time. So I remember in 1994 when Forrest Gump came out, I didn't get a chance to see it in the theater, but I remember my dad and my sister went to see it. And my dad loved it. And it's a good movie. Like, it really is a good movie. And Hanks is brilliant in it. But I'm sure my dad loved all the callbacks to the era to the eras, I should say, that he grew up in. So I'm not really sure, it's funny. I'm sure there was, if I had more time to think about it, I might be like, oh, right, I remember him saying that. But off the top of my head, I can't quite remember anything too old. But there's got to be. I mean, there has to be. But yeah, my mom was pretty hip. She liked, like, she would have loved, there's many movies that I go to the theater now to see, that I will often think to myself, oh, my mom would have loved this. Like, my mom would have loved Knives Out. My mom would have adored Knives Out because she loves those old school Agatha Christie whodunit type movies. So she would have loved Knives Out, and she would have loved the new. I think she would have felt the same way about the new Star Wars films like I do. I think she would have really liked The Force Awakens. I think she would have been disappointed by The Last Jedi, and I think she would have enjoyed The Rise of Skywalker. You know what I mean? I think she kind of would have felt the same way as me. But yeah, I miss her a lot. I miss them both a lot. I'll say that's yeah. She was hip to the scene, man. Let me see here. Kenny _525 says, Dave, what's the biggest thing you're nervous for during the shooting of Dylan's New Nightmare? I don't get, and I'm not trying to sound pompous when I say this, I rarely get nervous. In the traditional nervous sense. I get anxious, that nervous anxious, like I'm ready to go. Like, okay, let's do this. But if there's one thing, nervous though, I'm not really nervous. One thing I'll just say that I'm not nervous about this. I'll just say that I know the expectations. I know the shoes I'm stepping into, and I just want to do a good job. And I'm anxious to, when I get there, I really want to feel the environment. I really want to feel everybody out, because obviously I'll be hanging out with people I've already met, like Miko and Vince and Cecil and Nora, but I'll also be meeting people I've yet to meet. And I'm really looking forward to that. And just making new friends and sharing our passions for making movies and doing what we got to do and just sort of really diving into it, and I don't know if I'm nervous about that. I wouldn't say I'm nervous. I'm anxious though. I'm like, yeah, this is going to be good. Like, yeah, this is going to be, but I don't think there's anything in particular that I'm nervous about per se. I mean, maybe if this was my first time, maybe I would be more nervous, but I've been on camera many times before in small roles here and there and docudramas and commercials and I've been on stage, I've done a lot of theater and so I'm not nervous about like being on camera or being in front of anybody or acting, or it's just more of that. I want to do good. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I know that I'm not going to please everybody. I just have to do what I got to do and do it well and let the chips fall where they may. But I'm anxious to get back going. I'll just say that. Let me see. Jason Meyer says, and Captain Spaulding's Sid Haig hit me so hard. Oh, there must be something else above that you were talking about, because the sentence began with an and. I missed it. I don't know where it was. Let me see here. David Brooks says, hello, Dave. How's it hanging? Don't see you on here much now. You don't see me on here much now? David Brooks, where have you been? I have been uploading consistently for months. Or maybe you don't pop on too often, maybe is what you mean. That's funny. David, how's it hanging? Don't see you on here much now. Or maybe you're talking about another David in the chat. I assume you're talking to me. Yeah, Dave, I've been uploading consistently for months. There hasn't been a time that I've ever went away. Maybe you've been, because you know how sometimes YouTube will like unsubscribe people? Check to see if you're subscribed, check to see maybe something's happened, or maybe you're not getting notifications. I don't know, man. I don't know. But I've been here, man. I've been here the whole time. Take a look at my channel. There's videos going back to months. Let me see here. Tom, Wait a minute. Tom Ungrian? Tom Ungrian. Tom U and Green. Because the U's capitalized, so I don't know if that's separating the two words or whatever. Anyway, Tom says, Dave goes like 2 or 3 times a week. Oh, yeah, I do. Yep, I have the show 3 days a week. I have the Two Dudes show on Monday. That's 4 live streams I do a week. And then maybe a standalone video or 2 if I can get that in there. So if you think about it, there's 4 videos that are uploaded a week on my channel. Yeah, so I don't know. Oh, David says, really, man, I'm on YouTube every day and I don't see your content much in my subs. Well, that's so strange. Well, go to my channel and take a look at my uploads. You'll see that I upload at least 4 or 5 times a week. Check it out, David. Aaron Click says, add Frank. Oh, he's talking to Aaron. He's talking to Frank. John Burke says, what's your mom and dad's favorite movie? Oh, well, I was just talking about that, John. I don't know. I'd have to think about that more. Mark Johnson says, no, I didn't answer the majority of the time because you scumbags buy your number and email addresses. No. Oh, you're talking right about the phone. Exactly. Dude, I get messages, and lately I've been getting them a lot. Phone calls from the States, but it's unknown shit. Nobody ever listen. If it's important, they'll leave a message. If it's not important, they're not going to leave a message. It's that simple. If it's important, you leave a message. So yeah, I don't answer that shit. Frank Riker sends in a super chat. Thank you, Frank. Says, would like to see a Jabba the Hutt movie. A Jabba the Hutt movie? Can you imagine? But it's got to be, or I personally would like to see a Salacious B. Crumb movie. I would love to have a authentic, genuine Salacious B. Crumb puppet. Not the little one, not that there's anything wrong with these, but not the ones that you can get at Galaxy's Edge in Disneyland and Disney World. Not those, the ones that, sit on your shoulder and they're, you hit not that. I'm talking about, there's a visual effects company or a prop company or a puppet making, whatever it was. I got in touch with them about 3 or 4 months ago, and I emailed them through their site, and I said that I was interested in purchasing a Salacious B. Crumb that they have available on their site for purchase. It's not cheap, but I wanted to purchase it. It's authentic. It looks spectacular, and I would have loved to have had him here on the show. I just would have been so much fun. I love Salacious B. Crumb, and but they never got back to me. I never heard from them. So I'm like, well, it's okay. I don't know why. I don't know if my email went into spam or if they just were like, nah. I mean, if they're not making him anymore, then my advice would be to remove him from the site. Or if you, or to at least get back to me and say, hey, Dave, thanks for the email, but unfortunately we're not making Salacious anymore, whatever. And that's totally cool. That happens, right? But to not get back to me, I was like, oh, okay, well, snooze, you lose. I guess I am kind of out because I don't get a Salacious crumb, but they're also out money. So, it kind of goes both ways. So, I was a little disappointed by that because I was like, at that time, I was like, oh, I'm like balls deep in, neck deep. I'll say neck deep. Totally in. You know what I mean? So it's like, let's do this. But yeah, I didn't hear back. So Salacious. Jabba. If there's a Jabba the Hutt movie, you gotta throw Salacious in there. Let's see here. Ingbert Roddington. I like that name. Sends in a super chat and just gives a thumbs up, man. Thumbs up to you, buddy. Really appreciate the support to the channel. Thank you so much. Awesome stuff. Neil Rook says Halloween 5 or Devontae. Halloween 5. You know what? I'll take Devontae. I'll take Devontae because he's so easy to dismiss. Halloween 5 is like, it's there and it lingers and it's like, Devontae's nothing. Let me see here. John Burke says, speaking of legends dying, Kobe dying in that crash was shocking. Exactly. Again, I like the Raptors, obviously, and I was obviously watching very closely when they were on their championship run last year and became the first, they're the only Canadian NBA team, but certainly the first Canadian team to obviously do it, and the first Canadian team to win, one of the four, we don't have an NFL team here in Canada. They've tried to get one here in Toronto for years because Toronto obviously is large enough to support one. But the reason why they don't is because they know it would destroy the CFL, which is the Canadian Football League, and the Toronto Argonauts, which is the Canadian Football League's, team here. They know it would probably cause some friction. So that's one of the reasons why we haven't seen an NFL team in Toronto, one of them. But obviously we have baseball here, hockey here, and basketball. And I believe, because the Leafs haven't won the cup, and I think the last time a Canadian team won the Stanley Cup, I believe, was 1993, which was the Montreal Canadiens. So the last Canadian team to win out of the four major sports was the Toronto Blue Jays in the fall of 1993, because the Stanley Cup for the Canadians would have been in June. So it was great to see a Canadian team win. It was awesome. And the Raptors, I know they lost last night, but they were on like a 15-game winning streak. So, and they're doing pretty good. Without Kawhi, they're doing pretty good. We'll see what happens. So, I like, basketball in terms of watching the Raptors play. But I'm not a huge basketball fan, but certainly you don't have to be a huge basketball fan to know who Kobe Bryant is and know his level of impact on the world of sports, specifically basketball. One of the greatest players in the history of the game. Period. So when I found out that he died in a crash, same thing. I wasn't feeling depressed or upset, because I didn't have the same level of emotional attachment that many fans do. But it was one of those like Michael Jackson, Robin Williams kind of things where it's like, oh, wow. Okay. And he's like a year older than me or something. He's like 41 or something. So it's like, wow. Okay. Huh. All right. Well, that sucks. It was that kind of thing. It's like, wow, like surprising because of the level of impact that these people have. And that's why I made that tweet where I said, I'm no basketball scholar, so I can't speak to that side of it. But what I will say is that if there's anything that should be taken from this, it should be that it doesn't matter who you are, how rich you are, how famous you are, how what you look like, how sexy or good looking you are. It can happen to anybody. It's crazy. Anthony Stanfield sends in a super chat, says, in H Kills flashbacks, what are you expecting? Well, I'm expecting the Flash. I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I'm expecting that obviously we're going to see Lonnie Elam run into Michael Myers. And I suspect that will probably happen. Now, those of you that have seen the test screening, again, don't be a dick. Don't spoil it for anybody. If I see comments I will remove it and you'll be blocked. I'm that harsh about it, okay? Because I just don't want you to do that. But I suspect that the flashback scenes happen after Michael Myers has been shot 6 times, and that you're seeing sort of the residual effects take place after Dr. Loomis looks over the balcony and he's gone, and we see things happen after that. That's what I'm suspecting, because I just am trying to find a place in the original Halloween from 1978 where Lonnie could run into Michael. And although there might be moments you could allude to that that's where it happened, I just think that you could run into problems there, because he spends the vast majority of his time at the Wallace house, in and around the house. He's not going off to a street over, to have time to run into some kid with a pumpkin. I mean, it feels strange. So I think logically you will see that happen. It's after he's been shot 6 times, and we see sort of the how of Michael was caught, but we don't actually see it take place. We just kind of see the events unfold leading up to that. And you could have a Dr. Loomis in there too. You totally could have a Loomis in there. I suspect that's probably how it's going to be done, but we'll see. We'll see. And whether it will be good, I don't know. Whether it will feel shoehorned in, I don't know. We'll see, man. Ryback TV says they will just keep dragging the Friday the 13th on and on and on and on and on. Yes, just like they do with most horror franchises that do well. The Boogeyman says, what's your theory on the ending of The Thing? My theory on the ending of The Thing is that neither of them had it. Neither of them were infected. And, but they will never know. Now, I think a certain amount of time will probably go by where you gather the other person doesn't have it, but I don't think either of them have it. That's what I think. Yeah. But I could be wrong. I could be dead wrong. Okay, a couple more minutes here. We'll go to 1240. The Elm Street Slasher 84 says, how do you feel about your role about Freddy Krueger and Dylan's New Nightmare? You do a great Freddy. Maybe Elijah Wood could hire you for the next Freddy. I highly doubt he'd do that. I'm excited about it, man. I really am. I mean, for Cecil to reach out to me and to have the confidence in me to do it is pretty special. And to be able to, play opposite Miko Hughes, of course, who was the original Dylan Porter in New Nightmare from 1994 is pretty awesome. And of course, the only other person to play Freddy against him would be Robert Englund. So it will be Robert and me. So that's pretty cool. And but yeah, I mean, I'm just excited. Again, I'm excited about the opportunity to work with really talented individuals and people, and to share in that talent and work together and really make something special happen. You put your egos aside, you put it at the door, you walk and you say, dudes, let's fucking do this together, man. We're making a fucking movie, of this caliber, and we're all professionals and we're all, there's different levels of experience people bring to the table, and different experiences people bring to the table. And I'm just excited to work. I'm excited to work with Nora. I'm excited to sit in that makeup chair. I know it sounds like, oh my God, you got to, because that's what they're doing. I'm not wearing a Freddy mask. Nora Hewitt, a Hollywood special effects makeup artist who won season 9 of Face Off, she's doing the prosthetics on my face. So every morning I'm going to be in a makeup chair for like 3 or 4 hours, maybe even 5, becoming Freddy Krueger. That's amazing. I look forward to just sitting there and watching the transformation and talking to Nora and, shooting the shit and laughing and just getting to know her, and getting to know each other and just sort of, developing a professional relationship there, which is really cool. And then the same with Vince, and the same with Cecil, and the same with Miko, and the same with, anybody I haven't met yet who's going to be there helping out. It's just, could not be more excited to be a part of this in that way. It's really cool, man. Just really cool. And I'm so thankful that they asked me and they have that confidence in me. Michael Dean says, good afternoon, Dave. What do you think about the Jeepers Creepers movies? Would you ever do an episode on them? I really liked the first Jeepers Creepers movie. I did see the second one. I thought it was okay. And the third one I turned off after about 25 minutes. I thought it was dog shit. I just didn't like the production quality. I didn't like it felt like a cheap film. Unfortunately, the director of the movie is a convicted pedophile. So, it's not assumed. No, he's admitted. It's full on. But again, talent doesn't. You can be an extraordinarily talented individual and a scumbag. They're not mutually exclusive to each other. Just because you're an asshole or a pedophile or a sexist, misogynistic rapist doesn't mean that you're not talented. Harvey Weinstein was an incredibly talented producer, but he was a fucking scumbag. You can be, and that doesn't mean that all talented people are scumbags, and it doesn't mean all scumbags are talented people, but certainly they're not mutually exclusive to each other. So you can be both, and his first movie was pretty cool. He was showing some talent there, right? He also directed Powder from 1995, I think it was, or 96 something. Remember that movie Powder? He got some acclaim from that. I'm not saying he's talented, but I'm just saying that, Jeepers Creepers was pretty cool. He created another iconic sort of slasher villain. Unfortunately, he's a convicted pedophile. So nobody wants to work with him. He has trouble getting jobs because of that. This is how I would approach the Jeepers Creepers thing. If I were to talk about Jeepers Creepers, you cannot talk about Jeepers Creepers without talking about that side of the story. You would be doing a disservice, an injustice, if you talk about Jeepers Creepers and all that without talking about the fact that the guy that created it is a convicted pedophile. You can't not talk about that. I have no plans on talking about it, but that's how I would approach it. Dantastic says, "Hey Dave, just dropping in to say, what's up? 2020 going to be a great year for horror movies, including Dylan's New Nightmare." Yeah, man, going to be fun. Going to be fun, man. Going to be amazing. I'm excited for Dylan's New Nightmare. I'm excited for It's Me, Billy. It's going to be great, man. Going to be great. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me here on episode, 17, I think? 17 of McRae Live. 17 of McRae Live. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. And the super chats, of course, and all the questions that were not super chats. I try to get to as many as possible. But again, as I always say, it's never personal. You guys are amazing just for tuning in, sharing in the community. I see you guys talking to each other. And like I say all the time here, I think that is amazing. We're building a little community here, and that is awesome. So that is going to do it for me. I will be back tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time for episode 18 of McRae Live. And for those of you that are like, where's Wham? Why aren't the guys from We Watched a Movie on today? Don't worry, they were supposed to be on today, but we had to reschedule. Maybe next week. I can't promise anything, but maybe next week we will have Mike and Jay from Wham on the show. Don't worry. I'm making the rounds and trying to interview some people and got some good people coming down the pipe too. So not that those guys aren't good. Like actors and actresses and things like that. So stay tuned, my man. Stay tuned. It's going to be a lot of fun. That is going to do it for me. You guys are amazing. You know that. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the support. And I will talk to you guys soon. Alrighty. Cheers.